Okay, greetings and welcome to a very impromptu video. I didn't expect to do this myself, but yeah, it's a surprise FAQ day. It was interesting because I was literally playing with my friend the day before, so on Thursday the 7th, because we're like going to the Warhammer World FAQ, Warhammer World Tournament, and we were worried the FAQ actually won't drop before then. We were like, oh, it's going to be interesting, but it did. So I would advise you to ignore all my tabs and everything, but just focus on the video. So yeah, I'm doing this as an article as well, so you can check out the article down below. So let's just go through the changes. It should be really cool. I have read through them, but I already 10 out of 10 Games Workshop. But yeah, like and subscribe and comment down below what you've thought of the FAQ and changes. So if you like this impromptu format, don't know if I'm going to do a proper video intro. We'll see. This is very rushed because this is a very last minute video for me. But yeah, let's go into it. So we've got the Errata. Which one is it? So we'll start off with the Compendium. Let's go with the Errata first. So I'll zoom in a bit more for everyone. Okay. So the main thing with the Erratas are all the changes. So from what we can see, the Tactical Sergeant Combi Melters gained Mortal Wound 4 because it didn't have that before. Now there was a trick with smoke grenades. So what people were doing was they were hanging half out. So because smoke grenades basically broke how obscuring worked, so it basically said from the cover line. So what they've done now, what people were abusing before, was having their base half out of the smoke, so they could shoot you, but you couldn't shoot them because the moment one of your cover lines crossed their base, it was in the smoke and they're invisible. So now you have to be wholly inside the smoke, which stops you from shooting and not being shot. So it's a nice change there, like a huge clarification, which is really good. So only in Death Does Duty End has been changed, but more so in the core FAQ, which I'll get to later. So the key thing to remember here now is that it turns off at the end of the battle, so you can't just be alive at the end. So if for some reason that happens, Imperial Guards, I'd say, are some of the biggest changes. So their gunner is now have a 3-up save, and a 5-up save, sorry, instead of a 3-up. And then Tempesta Scion's weapon skill is 3-up, because oh yeah, he's the melee guy. Yeah, why not? The Tempesta Power Fist gains Brutal, because it didn't have that before. But the biggest thing is the Guardsman orders. So now, basically, they didn't really work because the way they were written was quite confusing and contradictory. So now it is all friendly Tempesta Scion operatives and all friendly Guardsman operatives within red and visible of a friendly Imperial Guard leader operative are issued that Guardsman order. So it basically makes mixed teams as well as just Guardsman orders in general actually work, which is really good because it kind of felt like they were just played veteran Guardsmen who are still better, but it's now this warband, well, this kill team is actually just playable, which is really good. So yeah, it's a nice buff because now Imperial Guard kill teams just work, which is really good, really good. And you know, you don't need a comms, but you'd take a comms anyway because now it can affect the whole kill team. Just a really good clarification. Then you've got the Ecclesiarchy, so you can only have one icon bearer in your kill team because currently it's not listed, so people were apparently running entire kill teams of icon bearers. That's gone. I mean, if you were doing that, what did you expect? Now, oh, look at this. If you're a Talons of the Emperor player, I'm afraid the salt level is probably too much. So they completely shocked me what they're going to do. I thought they were going to just completely rework Brotherhood, which they have, and they would change Aegis of the Emperor and Peerless Warriors to 2 CP each for their abilities, because basically Aegis makes you ignore all crit damage as an optional, and you just take the normal damage instead of the crit damage, which is crazy, and Peerless Warriors lets you fight twice and shoot twice. So Custodes were AP 4, they're now AP 3. Yeah, so they're now AP 3. APL free, which basically stops them because I feel APL 4 was too strong. You needed 3 operatives just to contest, and the Custodes would usually kill all of them. So them going down to 3 APL immediately makes them more manageable. They can no longer move, dash, shoot, shoot, move, dash, charge, charge. Oh, move, dash, fight, fight. You know what I mean? So, or like charge, fight, fight, shoot. So they're very limited in what they can do now, and Brotherhood of Demigods can only be played at the end of the firefight phase. Select one friendly Custodes unit to perform either a free fire or Overwatch. So no longer moving and charging, double charging, just none of that nonsense. It's all gone, and thank you, Games Workshop. You have saved Kill Team, because I know people are going to say it's too rough. I think it's needed. Maybe the free APL is a bit rough, but I mean, they have an 80% win rate. They weren't just winning tournaments, they were topping tournaments, like top 3 were Custodes, and they were maxing out everything. So now Custodes have to choose if they want to play the mission or kill you, which is way better. And you're probably going to see more mixed fire teams of Custodes and Sisters of Silence, which is still fine. I mean, as I said, I think every turn you're just going to be popping Aegis of the Emperor, because there's no reason not to, because it just makes you more survivable. But outside of that, that's a great change. They're still really strong. So if I was to publish my tier list, Custodes would be S. They'd be the only S tier operative kill team. Now they're A. They're still really good, but they're no longer dominating. Then the other thing you have is Death Guard. Their leader is now 2 white instead of 3 white, because that was an error. Unfortunately, Thousand Sun players, I'm really sorry, but Doombolt is no longer a bolt weapon. So you cannot shoot Doombolt and then a bolt weapon with malicious volleys. So that is now gone. For the Comrite kill teams, the Shredder gains Blast, which is really cool. It just becomes from a critical rule to a special rule. So it just generally has Blast, which actually makes it really interesting to take. And the Haywire grenades now have Limited, which is unfortunate but makes sense. And then there's just some more clarification. So warriors have to choose between a Gorse Flayer and Gorse Reaper. As some people tried to point out to me, they are not armed with both, and they cannot freely switch between both during the game. So just make sense. And then for the Tau, Hunter Cadres, sorry but not sorry. Your tactical support turret has a missile pod or smart missile system. You can't have both. The Stealth Suit, Fusion Blaster, now hits on a free with your leader. That's actually pretty good. And then the Recon Drone goes to Defense 3 from Defense 4, which I'm completely okay with. You know, you got your Fusion Gun now hits on a free with your leader. I think that's very fair. And the same with the Tactical Support Turret. That goes down to Defense 3. Then for the Brood Coven, which are the Genestealer Coats, it's the same for their hybrid. They can either have an autogun or a shotgun, not both, because that wasn't clarified. So that's the Compendium Errata. So let's go to the Compendium Designer's commentary and zoom in. It's just minor changes. So for the Comrade and Quaff world, it just clarifies how their free dash works. Well, when they perform a dash. So you can perform a normal move or fallback action immediately followed by dash action or vice versa. So it kind of works like Daka Dash, basically. Then for Craft worlds, can the heavy weapon platform perform Overwatch? And can the control platform do Overwatch? And it's basically no, because the heavy weapon platform is just designed to suck, which is really unfortunate. It's just don't play the skill team. Then the troop. So this was already clarified, and people had a feeling how that works. So basically, Prismatic, Blur, and Brutal. So if you are forced to parry when you strike a charged or moved, Harlequin on a 4+, you can parry one of their strikes instead. But if they're attacking with a brutal weapon, which normally can't be parried, you can parry it as well. So it just kind of stops you into a lose-lose situation against the Harlequins. There's a slight nerf to the Harlequins, but it makes them more playable against. So it's good in my book. And then for the Hunter Cadre, when you do stand and fire, if I select a weapon that has more than one profile, can I select a profile to use even though it's not a shoot attack? So yes, so you can use, like if it's Fusillade. I'm not sure how this applies. I guess it's to overcharge weapons. Yeah, so you can like overcharge in close combat. Makes sense. And then how does camouflage with the stealth suit interact with indirect? So camouflage takes precedent, so you're always in cover, which is nice, more clarifications and just nice things. Not many huge changes, but just important things to keep in mind, especially if you're a competitive player. All right, so then we've got the core book Errata. So let's zoom in. So this is kind of a big change for line of sight and cover. You change the second bullet point to read, if the intended target is within black of a point which a cover line crosses another operative's base, unless that operative is not itself in the active operative's line of sight or a terrain feature that provides cover. So it kind of stops you from just completely daisy chaining around like invisible operatives. So you can still be in someone's line of sight, but then it's like obscured. So if you're like white or more or from a heavy terrain feature which is obscuring, and then you're like daisy chaining operatives behind that operative, that will no longer work. So it kind of just means you kind of have to be a bit more risky with like trying to use your operatives for cover, which I think is fine. The hugest change is the terrain trait of scalable. Now, we were waiting for this to be added in Chalnaf because that's where it's going to be added. But this applies to any terrain feature that is more than 2 white tall. So anything 5 inches or taller. Each time an operative climbs that terrain feature, the final incremental distance of less than white is ignored instead of being rounded up to white. So it kind of, what does it do? So it basically removes that white. So a 5 or 6 inch tall building is only going to cost 2 white, which is what we generally thought, which is actually really cool. They're adding that now, and it instantly opens up 40k terrain, because the main problem we've had with tournaments is using terrain that's about 5 inches tall, and it's really difficult to climb because you have to move like 3 white, so 6 inches just to climb and then dash to get on top. But this just makes it so much easier. Like now you can just climb something that's 6 inches tall, and it just opens up the terrain we can use for the game. So this is, after the Custodes, this is probably the biggest change. So next we have drop. So you change the paragraph to read. So, you know, when you drop, the operatives must be in black of the edge, and it must be vertically within 3 white of the level it occupies. The operative can drop from that terrain feature, counting the vertical distance it travels towards the total distance it moves. The vertical distance is measured in increments of white rounding down. Note that the vertical distance of less than than white is therefore ignored. An operative can perform a dash action during the drop in order to reach its intended destination. So what you can do now is you can combine dashing with dropping. So you can't just get into situations where, you know, you're just 1 white short of finishing a drop move. You can now dash as well. So it's basically climbing and dropping work the same. It's just dropping, you just remove 1 white when you're rounding down. So, you know, just makes mobility easier. And then this is just a narrative change. What is this for? Mission 3.3 for narrative play. If you score 3 or more victory points from the security or infiltration tag-ups during the battle, you gain 1 additional requisition point. So for all you narrative players, that's for you. Now we go, where is it? That was the core rules errata. Now the designer's commentary. So this actually has a lot. So I need to. So line of sight, it clarifies more how obscuring and cover works with very clear diagrams. And this is something I did not expect. The fact they've done this is amazing. Like, just thank you, Games Workshop. Like, literally so clear. So let's see. The question is, when establishing cover lines and determine the point at which they cross the terrain to your bases, what are the specific points you should measure for, and particularly determine cover and obscured? The answer is cover and obscured require the operative to be at certain distances from a point. This means at any point at which a cover line crosses the terrain feature, it does not need to be the closest point. So it could be in the middle, could be at the start, could be at the end. So in this example, operative A is not more than white from the closest point at which cover line crosses at 1. However, it is more than white from a point which crosses at 2, so therefore it is obscured. So effectively invisible. When establishing cover lines for obscuring parts of an obscuring terrain feature within black of an operative that are not treated as obscuring, does that mean the active operative is within black of a terrain feature that is obscuring? The whole terrain feature is not treated as obscuring. No, the only specific parts of the terrain feature that are within black of them are not treated as obscuring. So in this example, all parts of the terrain feature are within black of the operative are not treated as obscuring. However, there are parts that are more than black from the operative, so therefore operative A is obscured. So even though you're within black of that terrain feature, because that operative A is further away than you are closer, it is pretty much invisible. So this is really important to know for trying to deny cover. You effectively have to try and get within their face and make sure you're within 1 white of the operative. So cool, really important clarifications that I'm glad they talked about. And then this is just characteristics for modifiers for movement. If an operative has a movement of 3 white and 1 black, the modified characteristic would be 3 white and 1 black, not 3 white and 3 black. So, and modifiers don't affect dashes. Okay, so this is now they clarify action point limits. So, if an operative's action point limit is modified during its activation, will the action points generated for that activation be affected? No, unless otherwise specified. Action points are generated after first determining an operative's order for its activation. So modifiers at that point won't affect how many action points it has for its activations. Modifiers to an operative's APL when it's activated, e.g. the commando no abuses get it done ability on itself, could affect the action points generated, as this happens before it generates action points. So what it would do is, basically, if it happens during your activation, it means you can contest until the end of your activation, but it won't increase your APL. It has to be either specifically say that it does what happens before you are activated, such as with like comms guys giving, operatives APL. So really cool here. And then this is just for moving. I'm not a fan of this one. So it basically says, when you're on a vantage point, do you have to be wholly on it or part of the base over the edge? So long as the operative can be placed without falling, its base can be over the edge. I don't like this because it can encourage you to use vantage points that shouldn't really be placed on, but more importantly, you can like cram vantage points to stop people getting on. And it's a double-edged sword, right? So it stops one model effectively blocking off vantage points, but it's a really weird thing. I don't know. It's like a win-win, lose-lose situation. It's a lose-lose situation. It's just unfortunate, you can't really work around that. And then when climbing or dropping, does an operative gain any free horizontal movement? No. So you don't, it's not like fly. And then can the fly keyword allow a friendly operative to perform an action in which it would normally ordinate prohibitive while within engagement range of an operative, e.g. a normal move? No. So the flyer operatives would be physically moved. So you don't ignore engagement range. So you would have to do a fallback move instead. And then it just clarifies stairs or angled slopes. You move across them freely. So, nice there. So here is actually a really important thing. So how do storm shields work in Kill Team for parrying more than 1 dice? So if the operative parries with a normal hit, they select up to 2 normal hits from their opponent to be discarded. If the opponent parries with a critical hit, they can select either 2 criticals, 2 normal hits, or 1 critical and 1 normal hit. So Storm Shield's really strong. As long as you roll a crit, you can parry a crit and a normal hit or 2 crits. So really strong. It's nice it's clarified. Another unfortunate thing, if you don't have a melee weapon, you do not roll attack dice. You just automatically get hit. Well, I mean, if your opponent rolls to hit. So you can't parry or provide combat support. So notably, it sucks for the Elder Exarch, who has to buy a melee weapon with equipment to not get hit in combat. Well, not go auto hit. Now, this is super important for basically stuff like only in death does duty end. If an operative is incapacitated and affected by a rule that states it isn't removed from the kill zone, such as all of these, what happens when it fights in combat? Specifically, the resolve successful hit step. Do you resolve until one does incapacitated? Does that mean that operative can't resolve hits as already incapacitated? So yes, as such, being incapacitated but being temporarily remaining in the kill zone will not allow the operative to resolve hits in combat. So you can charge into combat, just your fights do nothing. You won't be incapacitated, but you can't do any damage or whatsoever. So it stops basically invulnerable operatives charging in and YOLOing people to death, which is kind of what I did in my bat rep from yesterday, Space Marines versus Hunterclade. So this is actually a huge change. It basically stops immortal people fighting. It's still useful because what you can do is if you need to contest a point, you can charge onto the point to contest it and then use an action point to activate it if it's a mission. But you're no longer super immortal. So a huge tone down to these kind of stratagems, which is just good to see. And this is just, what do you do when you retain a dice in cover that has a save characteristic of 6? Does it count as a crit or normal save? It just counts as a normal save. So while we would love it, fellow 6-up save operative users, it's just a normal cover save. Normal save. So, for special rules and critical hits, when fighting in combat or making a shooting attack, if an operative has multiple special rules that critical hit rules would take effect at the same time, in what order are they resolved? The operative's controlling player can choose the order for the rules that would take effect at the same time. Note this is an exception to the normal usual method of resolving simultaneous rules, in which the player with the initiative determines the order. Also note that if one rule is stated in the attack roll dice step and another stated at the end of the attack roll dice step, they do not take place at the same time. So just more timing clarifications, which is really important if you want to play competitively. If an operative has a rule that allows it to repeat a specific action, such as combat or shooting, can it do so with a weapon that has the limited special rule, or for a combat or shooting attack? Yes. In this instance, you could use the weapon again, even if it has the limited special rule. Oh my god. I'm trying to think where this is actually usable, but oh my gosh. So you could do limited grenades twice or stuff like that. Okay, I need to do more research into this, but that's actually a huge surprising change. General principles. How would you resolve contrasting rules? For example, the contagion strategic ploy, that means enemy operatives are treated and being injured, but the Emperor's chosen ability means that they cannot be injured. So in such circumstances cannot take precedence. So the Emperor's Chosen would prevent them from being injured as a result of the contagion strategic ploy. There may be rules where specific wording overrides that though. For example, if the operative is treated as being injured, regardless of any rules, says it cannot be injured. In this instance, then they would still be affected. So as long as it's saying they are treated as being injured while not being injured, such as with, I think, the Psychic Abomination or Anathema for the Sister's Silence. So yeah, it cannot trumps all unless it doesn't specify. Overwatch isn't an activation, just clarifying it again. If an operative would be injured for more than one rule, are the multiple effects applied more than once? No. In such instances, Creeping Dread strategic ploy would have no additional effect on someone who's injured. So you can't basically double injure someone. Then for missions, when setting up a digital barricade with Fortify, because it doesn't specify rules, can it be set up on a terrain feature? No, unless that has the insignificant trait, such as ignored stuff. Now for Consecrate Ground, if you modify an APL until the start of the next turning point, as this modifier doesn't generate any additional action points for the operative's activations, what is the effect of this? It means the operative is better at controlling objective markers and tokens until the start of the next turning point. So it's noted as an exception of the normal turning point time frames for APLs. So as I said in Consecrate, it just makes it harder for them to steal objectives for you and easier for you to contest stuff. There we go. Rob and Ransack. The card is misprinted. You go with the core book. Use the card to generate the attack up, or use the rules presented in the core rule book, which is fine. I'm probably just going to write on with a Sharpie to fix it. Don't glue paper on. And then for Killzone, the scrap pile terrain feature in Octarius. Can an operative perform a dash action in the same which it performs a charge action over that, even though a charge action is treated as a charge action? Yes, it's an exception for that terrain feature. So that's actually interesting, especially at terrain tournaments using the Killzone terrain. So you can charge, kill someone, and dash. That's but only when using the charge over action. So it's just for that scrap pile terrain feature. Now we go to the Commandos. These are the other two. So for Commandos, you have, let's see, Kill Team Octarius. So change the brutal special rule from the breacher to a critical hit rule to gain just the brutal special rule. So now the breacher ram always has brutal, which is great. And then it now gains a bull charge ability. So change this to read each time the operative fights in combat. If it made a charge move during that activation, the breacher ram gains the stun critical hit rule for that combat, which is great. Like, it gained brutal, so now it always has brutal, and then if you charge with a crit, it has stun. So there's just, Commandos got a buff. Then the Commando knob gains the leader keyword, because some people, some of my friends were arguing Commandos don't get the the 2 command points for not having a leader. So that's just fine. And then the smoke grenade is the same thing as the Space Marine, so they have to be wholly within to benefit from the smoke grenades. Finally, for the veteran Guardsman. So, for the Guardsman orders, if more than one Guardsman order could be assigned by your kill team during the turning point, they must be different Guardsman orders. So I'm not entirely sure how you get a second one. I believe it's via stratagems. But yeah, so they have to be different, so you can't double up on the same order. Tactical ploys and Death Atonement. So it's the same thing as owning Death Does Duty End. So this is the interesting thing. The plasma pistol is now BS 3 up instead of 4 up. So we thought that was a balance thing. And the ballistic skill of the confidence bolt pistol is now 4 up. So I didn't know that. It probably was a 3 up or something. Then demolition. So this was actually, there was a heated debate on this on some discords. But when making this shooting attack, each operative is treated as being visible and not obscured. But when determining if it is in cover, treat the mine token as the active operative. So basically, if you were obscured before, you ignored the demolition mine rules as weird, but now you don't. So nice clarification. It's a big boom. And the biggest thing, medic can't affect itself with his when he gets incapacitated. So once again, an error I did. But yeah, you know, he can't. The way my friend describes it, oh, medic gets shot in the head. He can't then just go, hold on, I could deal with that. So he just heals himself. But yeah, you know, that's it. That's it for the FAQs. So the biggest thing, the only thing that is actually missed, in my opinion, is the fact you can't, what do you call it? So objective markers. So all the missions say you measure from the marker and the card, but when you go to the actual objective page, it says anything that says measure from the marker, you actually measure from the center. So if it's not, you measure like white or black from the marker, you always measure for the center. I just would have liked that clarified in the core rules, like as a designer's commentary, just to make everyone aware, because some people are still arguing over that. It's just a minor clarification. And I think people, like, one thing that's come up recently is over vantage points. If you're quite far back and then you're shooting at someone, you can just see their head. When you draw the cover lines and it's going through several pieces of terrain, how does that exactly work? Does your own terrain piece block you? So something that just needs to be clarified. But other than that, oh my gosh, like, this has been such an amazing FAQ and errata. You know, I'm not entirely happy with how Custodes, like, as in, I think they should have reworded Aegis of the Emperor. It's like Aegis, it should say it just ignores the first crit damage. I think that would have been much better, because it's kind of too good the way it works, but it is what it is. You know, they're only AP3 now, APL3, sorry, and Brotherhood has been destroyed and it works properly now. So I think that's a really good change. That's just me being like overzealous. Overall, they've clarified pretty much every main issue with the game. So 10 out of 10 Games Workshop. Wow, 9.5. Let's leave some room for improvement. But I'm really looking forward to this. Interesting to see how this shakes up the game. And yeah, this is just really cool. I'm surprised this came up now, but I'm really happy. So happy. Thank you, Games Workshop. And I hope you enjoyed this impromptu overview of, well, the errata and FAQ. As I said, I've got an article version of this, which you could check out. But please remember to like and subscribe, as well as comment. You know, what did you think? Do you think Custodes are hurt too much? Not enough? Should they just be removed? No, this is fine. But what did you think? It's like, once again, like the really clear diagrams in the errata is just like, oh my gosh, like I don't even get this in normal games. So wow, like Games Workshop really stepping up their game and showing they support and really care about Kill Team. And it's great to see, especially Kill Team has its own section. Once again, ignore the tags. Don't look at the tags. Look at the Kill Team section. Don't look at the tabs. Don't look at the tabs. It's okay. I've got a super processor. It's fine. And 64 gigs of RAM. But yeah, nice clarifications. I don't think there really is anything missed apart from what I've already mentioned. But yeah, enjoy this video. I hope we can now. So it's interesting to see how tournaments are going to go with Kill Teams. Like, you've already got Custodes players saying, like, it's the end of the world. Custodes are dead, even though Custodes are probably just going to go to Custodes and Five Sisters with masks. But yeah, really positive, beneficial changes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See you guys soon. Keep rolling crits with the help of balance changes.